The holy city of Jerusalem under fire. Images like these coming in from Israel all day. Dramatic pictures of families huddled in concrete pipes for safety. The world watching right now and asking, is the region even closer to the brink of war?
At one of Jerusalem's most holy sites, early morning clashes. Police use stun grenades and rubber bullets to clear an area outside one of the gates.
More tension today in Jerusalem between Palestinians and Israeli police. Muslims are protesting heightened security measures at the city's most contested holy sites following last week's deadly attack on 2 Israeli security guards.
Two adamant groups. One invaluable strip of land.
A vendetta that stretched on for a century.
And the conflict and compromise between them.
Ever since Israel's inception, following World War II, it has been a very controversial country. There have been several highly divisive conflicts surrounding not only the nature of having a dedicated Jewish state, but also which religious group should control the land, as it is considered holy to several religions.
One of the first and greatest ongoing conflicts over control of that area arose soon after Israel was established. The country of Israel was established as a safe haven for the Jewish people. Jews felt the need for their own homeland or state due to their belief in the newly formed ideology of Zionism. They believed that Judaism was both a religion and a nationality.
The land was previously under British rule, but they decided to allow the UN to partition the land. This decision was made due to the growing numbers of Jewish immigrants who had been flocking to the area during the war. There were so many immigrants that Britain had to place sanctions on Jewish immigrants entering the area.
However, only about half of what is now Israel was given to the Jews. The rest was given to the Palestinians to create their own Arab state. The Palestinians are an ethnic group hailing from what is now Israel and the surrounding countries. They are mostly Muslim, with a small Christian minority.
As part of the agreement, the city of Jerusalem became international territory, as it was extremely religiously significant to both parties. The land that was allocated as Israel was once a part of the British Mandate for Palestine, and when they lost large sections of the area to Israel, they felt as if their land had been forcibly taken away from them. On top of this, many Palestinians in the area saw the UN plan to divide the land as more British influence.
Seeing as many of the neighboring, predominantly Islamic states had just been freed from Britain themselves, they decided to attempt to invade Israel and form a unified Arab Palestine. They eventually were fought off by the Israeli government in what is now known as the Arab-Israeli War.
In the end, Israel pushed the Palestinians out of not only Israel, but also the majority of what was the Arab state. Notably, they also seized the western half of the city of Jerusalem and expelled many Palestinians from their homes, creating a terrible refugee crisis. The entire situation built upon a growing feeling of contempt towards the new Jewish state.
This unrest hit a fever pitch in 1967 during the 6 Days War, over the course of which fewer than 1,000 Israeli soldiers were killed. However, the casualties on the Palestinian side numbered much greater. At the end of the war, Israel had seized the rest of Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and the Sinai Peninsula.
Now Israel will have to govern the unhappy Palestinians. Soon after the Camp David Accords were signed between the two parties, the Sinai Peninsula was returned to Egypt. Not everyone was happy, however. As soon as the Camp David Accords were signed, the Egyptian president, Anwar Sadat, was assassinated.
This would be the last major development in the conflict for the next several years, as Israel's neighboring countries slowly made peace with it. However, an organization known as the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, that had formed in the 1960s, began to commit several acts of terrorism in the name of the Palestinian state. The PLO fought the Israeli government for several years until Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982. Then, several Israeli settlers began to move into the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
In turn, this continued to force out native Palestinians. Settlers continued to move into the land in even greater numbers, despite being declared illegal by the international community. During this time, the PLO even organized into a government, known as Fatah. They claimed to control the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. By 1987, the Palestinians' frustration toward the settlers exploded into the First Intifada.
These riots that lasted until 1983 killed over 1,000 Palestinians. However, Fatah was less focused on eradicating Israel. which spurred the creation of a new group known as Hamas. They dedicated themselves to totally destroying Israel. Soon after, as both sides realized the agency of the situation, the leader of Fatah, Khalid Mashal, and the then president of Israel met to sign the Oslo Accords.
This agreement established a Palestinian Authority and gave them slightly more freedom to govern themselves. Hamas, however, strongly opposed of the Oslo Accords and even attempted to sabotage the process by orchestrating several suicide bombings. Then, after signing the second round of the Oslo Accords, the president of Israel was shot by a far-right Israeli.
In 2000, the second round of the Camp David Accords were signed, and not long after, a second intifada began. This intifada was much more lethal than the first. It was a skirmish that took the lives of about 1,000 Israelis and 3,200 Palestinians. After, the Israeli politics shifted right, and the country began to build large walls around the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. They also closed many of the Palestinian communities. This is where the conflict stands today.
Among political leaders, there are two generally accepted solutions to the conflict. The first is the two-state solution. This would divide the land into Israel and Palestine. However, this failed before, and it will likely not work now. The second solution is the one-state solution. This would merge the Israelis and Palestinians into a single state.
The problem with this situation, however, is that neither side would get their own state, and they would likely begin to feel like outsiders again, and that could lead to more conflict.
If any solution were to be executed, it would have to be done very carefully. Great care would have to be taken to ensure that both sides feel they have been given equal treatment.
The challenge of mediating a large multi-group situation is how you orchestrate all the players. But we do it all the time. The real question is, are people ready to come together in a conversation like that?
An essential part of drafting any viable two-state solution would be to ensure that Israel is not split as it was previously. The division of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip directly led to the creation of Hamas, which in turn meant that there are now two Palestines that any viable solution must satisfy.
In order for more solutions to come forward, people around the world need to recognize the issue and collectively brainstorm solutions. If people put off the issue, nothing is going to get better. The mutual feelings of discontent amongst the groups will not be resolved.
Oftentimes, we turn to art and expressions of opinions from people within the conflict to better understand an issue. While some may refer to it derogatorily as propaganda, these political cartoons are a great insight into feelings of humans there.
The Israel-Palestine conflict has been and continues to be divisive with no clear right side. But just why has it been such a prominent conflict throughout history?
The Palestinians felt the conflict to be severe because of the actions of the United Nations. They saw the recognition of the Promised Land as Israel rather than Palestine as a further extension of Western imperialism.
Jews, on the other hand, felt that they deserved their own homeland after being discriminated against in years past. This discrimination peaked at the Holocaust, in which millions of Jews were killed.
While there has yet to be a complete armistice ending the conflict, smaller compromises are arguably the most miraculous. Even amongst the two extremist groups, an agreement was made. Although it involved fighting, Fatah agreed to exit the Gaza Strip and set up a temporary government in the West Bank.
The Oslo Accords proved that two groups of opposite interests could come to a diplomatic agreement and settle their problems. Further compromises have helped towards quelling the conflict.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict was born from the plight of two groups of people who claimed ownership over their holy land and their ongoing struggle to find peace in the most religiously significant and sought-after place in the world.
If we go down to the level of needs of individuals, actually, it's a fight to everybody's finish unless everybody works together at the individual level. At the individual level, we're all the same. And it doesn't matter that we're part of one group or one religion or another, but we all have these human needs that need to be fulfilled.
Israelis and Palestinians,
fighting for years, but unified in their goal.
In desperate need for their own homeland.
And it truly is a whole new frontier.